Before we get into today's show, I just want to add a quick reminder that any donations given to our nonprofit, Better Burma, will be shared directly with those in Myanmar who need it most. Any and all donations will make such a difference right now. Go to insightmyanmar.org/donation if you would like to contribute, or stay tuned to the end of the episode and hear more options. With that, let's get into the show. I'm really pleased for this episode of Inside Myanmar podcast, where we're joined by a special guest, Nan Su Mon Aung. She is the NUG representative in France. Nan Su Mon Aung, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and chat with us today.
Hello, thank you so much as well for having me today. This is my first time doing podcast interview.
Great. Well, it's an honor to have you as the NUG representative in France to discuss a bit about the work you're doing. Tell us a bit about what you're doing through the NUG, as well as the situation in France and what you're facing and what you're trying to promote there. I think it'll be good for our audience to learn about some of those activities. So let's start with learning about how this position came to France. As we know, there has been tremendous work over the past 2 years of trying to bring legitimacy and recognition to the NUG. That's come to varying levels of success. And in some places, like as in France, there is an official NUG representative. So can you tell us how that position came to be created and how French authorities view that position of an official NUG representative?
Yes, thank you. So first, I will just try to begin by introduce myself a bit. So I am Nan Su Mon Aung. So I am a Burmese and I belong to Karen and Po ethnic. So I come from Karen state where the civil war is happening for many decades. And now, because of the gender terrorists, there is an ongoing intense battle between the gender and our people, different force, also include with our unresisted force, EROs, every day and everywhere across the country. So first of all, before we talk about how I take the role of the representative in France. So I would like to talk about also my personal story before the coup. So as I myself grew up under the previous gender dictatorships, I have always wanted to experience a true democratic government. So in 2015, when our leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, won with a landslide victory, I was we Burmese people were so happy and excited about that, like our dream is going to become true. So after 2015, under the civilian government, we started feeling like the value of democracy and how it is to be free. But of course, with many limitations, the civilian government didn't have 100% control over the country. So in the 2020 election, we all hoped and wanted a true and full democracy in our country. So only with the hope, we all voted the National League for Democracy, NLD, even though during the COVID crisis, all the civilians try their best to be able to vote. But yet the NUG won a landslide victory again, as we expected. And we all are excited and satisfied about the results and started hoping the best with high expectation for our future generation and our country. But then again, the coup did not happen, so we all couldn't believe it. Though we knew that the military general and their leader don't have a proper brain, but we just didn't know how much insane and dangerous they are. So then there is the NUG, and then after the coup, the NUG is found in April 2021, and we all were fully supported and believe in the NUG, as it includes elected legitimate member from the 2020 election who managed to escape from the gender terrorist arrest. So since then, the NUG have been trying to gain international support, including recognition of its legitimacy, and different representatives in important countries has been avoided, given that France, as you said, France is a democratic country who strongly condemned the gender. The NUG also avoided a representative in France before. Then, due to some circumstances, they needed to find a new representative who could take over this responsibility. So, as my educational background is life science and environmental science, I don't have any experience or knowledge in politics, though I am interested in it, as I know our government needed someone who could take the job in France. So I finally decided to apply for it, even though I knew that it would be a very big challenge to me. So I have been appointed as a representative in March 2022. So to speak briefly, my main role are like to engage with the French authority, so to inform the French society about what is happening in Myanmar, to also represent the Burmese citizens in France, and to facilitate the contact between the NUG and the French civil society organization. So now it has been almost 9 months, where, to be honest with you, it isn't easy, and I'm facing different challenges every single day. Each day brings its own set news, like when the new atrocity committed by the military, and sometimes I just want to forget about it and live a normal life like other people. But I know that even if I just quit, it won't be easy for our government to replace me with another person, as it would take big sacrifice to be able to take the job. So since now my name and my face are not already in public, so whatever the difficulty I'm facing, I determined to do it and to try my best for the sake of our people inside the country who are giving their life on the ground. So now we have also our team, our office team, including official member and also friends, consultant, and also volunteer students. So this is a big help to our revolution. I know I'm not good at leading the team, but I try my best and continuously striving to learn new things. In this time, we don't know how long our revolution will take, but of course, the more we are doing and fighting the gender with unity among our rank, the sooner we shall prevail. So, and I believe 100% in our revolution. I cannot imagine what the future generation will have to live under new dictatorships, and I cannot accept and let it happen. We all Burmese people do not accept it. So that's why even the gender use violence against the people by performing air strikes or burning down villages, our revolution is just become more and more stronger. So, like we all need to write our own history in the history movement and behave as proud citizens. So, if I go back to your question, I will say that France is a bit support to us, as it is a democratic country who share the Republican value or liberty, equality, and fraternity. even though we need practical help such as arms and financial aid, France is one of the more important donor country for humanitarian assistance to Myanmar. Currently, most of the international humanitarian assistance is delivered by the junta, and we are struggling to make it reach to the needy people. So the NUG is trying to find a solution to deliver the assistance to the needy person in Myanmar with the generosity of our own people. So I cannot say much, but one thing is that we have a regular communication with the Foreign Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we are doing what we can. France is also using its diplomatic influence to support Myanmar. Currently, at the United Nations Security Council, a resolution on the situation of Myanmar was adopted for the first time in history since 1948, after the independence of Myanmar. And so UK is the lead country, and other European countries like France are visible to us. We can say it is only a mere resolution, as it takes a lot of time and work from many countries to support the Myanmar Spring Revolution. And our ambassador, Uzo Moton, also has been kept as the permanent representative of Myanmar to the United Nations in New York. So this is also not only because of the voice of the people of Myanmar, but also it included the support from the Credential Committee member countries and the UN General Assembly. So we are thankful, and the NUG also reached a statement for that.
Thank you for that. That's a great description that covers a lot of topics and covers a lot of ground in terms of your own personal story and the NUG. And I'm glad that you were able to bring up something of your own background and share where you came from. You referenced being your family coming from the Karen and Pao communities. I wonder if we can back up a bit before we get more into some of the NUG policy and what France is doing and all of that. If we can just take some time to learn more about you. If you can talk a bit about what it was like to grow up in Karen Pao communities, we might have listeners that are not familiar with those ethnicities. Talk a bit about that, and then what brought you to France. I assume that if you're the NUG representative in France, you must have had some prior experience in your life to France or French language or something like that. So, where your journey took you from Karen Pao communities into eventually France.
Yes, thank you. So in Myanmar, I studied in Pan University. I finished my master with zoology. So after that, I always I have been like sharing, teaching, volunteering because I grew up in a village. So and then after I finish my master, I also trying to pass the CV exam to become a demonstrator at Pan University. And then in 2012, I took the exam, and then in 2015 again, because it is quite a big challenge to pass the examination. So, and then I passed in 2015. So I worked as a demonstrator in Pan University for 6 months. So after that, I have experienced how to work under that time with the limitations. So I think like I decided I need to continue to study at the international university. So after that, I trying to apply at different university. So finally, I applied at a university in France. So like that, I have been. I first arrived in France in 2013. That's my first time to visit, and then I did my study in 2015 in a university in France. Sabon University. Now the name became the Sabon University. So I did my study from 2015 to 2018. Normally the master degree is only 2 years. But with the language barrier, the difficulty of the language barrier, as my French levels, they need to improve. So I had to repeat my first semester in master 1. So even the master it should be in 2 years, but I finished in 3 years. Yes. So after that, I finished my study in 2018. After that, I began to share the knowledge to the Myanmar student, because as I say, I grew up under the previous gender dictatorship. So I would like to the new generation to have experience to learn easily at an international university. So that's why I created, after my study, I created a Facebook page and a website to share knowledge and international scholarship program for young Burmese students. Like step by step, I began to try to get a mini scholarship to talented young student, and I was willing to take another step, but the coup happened. Yes, so that's why all my plans were gone. So yes.
Right. So that's quite a journey you're describing, going from rural Kren Pao villages to universities there, and eventually to France, and then starting to run your own educational programs to help other Burmese that don't have the opportunities that people around the world have. That's really wonderful and inspiring to hear. You reference how the pain and the difficulty of growing up under a military regime as you did. So I wonder if you can describe a bit what life was like for you growing up in these Karen Pao communities, and at a time when the military regime was really in power. If you can describe a bit about your life, as well as describing a bit about these communities and ethnicities for those listeners who aren't familiar.
Okay. Yes. As long as I remember vividly, grew up under the dictatorship is because we didn't get a chance to learn as a school, like compared with other neighboring country. For example, we have learned with the education system like very strict, and like we had to learn all the lesson by heart. So that's why until now I still experience this difficulty. Until now, even I had experienced the international education back here. But still, that is with me, will be with me all life. That's my became like our weep white. I mean, the people same generation with me, same age with me right now, because of the education. Of course, if I talk about community, that like the education is the more important in the community. So yes, it's very difficult for us because our education system is just like a teaching center. It's not student center education. So we had to learn every lesson by heart. I mean, so that's why for me, I so weak to memorizing our own history and the number, everything, because I had learned so much lesson in my life by heart. And then after that, after I take exam, I forgot everything I had learned. That is become used to like anti, because the system is not enter in the primary, middle and high school. Is this anti the university education, anti my master degree? I had to learn every lesson by heart until I finished my master degree. So only when I did my thesis for 6 months, I no need to learn by heart to our lesson. So the thing like that is it very is it not good for us and for our generation at that time? And also we had to afraid. We had to obey. We don't have freedom. Like the education system is quite completely different from here. Here is this, like when I did my master here in France, like if I have question, if I had to speak something, if I had to discuss with the professor, I can just raise my hand and I can just ask the question. If I don't agree something, I can just say as much as I want, and also I had chance to discuss it frankly with the respected teacher or professor. But in Myanmar, at that time, no, during our time, maybe so we don't have a right. We don't have a right to express our feeling, and also that's a one thing for education. So if I speak about the what we have faced or what I had experienced, so I also grew up in a Korean village, in a small Korean village. So I stay with my grandma. So my grandma always talk about the how the brutality of the gender, the soldier and everything. So I grew up with that, hearing how the soldier enter the village and burn down the whole villages and take everything they saw. And then arrested the villager or do all kind of those things like happening now again in the Anya, we call Anya in the central Myanmar. Before, this is not new to us, and I grew up hearing all those the story which happened really. So I also heard about that, grew up with that, and also I experienced myself and the digital. So all I want is, as I mentioned before, I always had to wanted to experience a true democratic government.
Right. So this was the journey and the path that ultimately led you to France. You've been in France about a decade. Just before we get a bit deeper into NUG, to just stay for a moment on your journey and on France itself. So, as you came from these Karen villages and then from Myanmar itself into France and Western Europe, I'm wondering what that experience has been like for you, what it's been like adapting to French culture, and just speaking about something of the cultures of these two countries, the peoples of these two countries. I wonder if you can talk a bit about uh, things you find that are similarities between Myanmar and France, things that maybe wouldn't be so obvious or apparent to someone who knew about these countries that you found as a common tie that's similar between the two countries, and also experiences you had of culture shock and of big cultural differences that you had to adjust to coming from Myanmar to France.
Yes, of course, it's Asia, Southeast Asia, and Europe. So, yeah, it is when I first arrived in France, everything is totally different. The weather, the culture, the food, everything. So yes, so at first I don't think I could try to live here, and I that's why I also I never think I will stay here for a long time. So I always, after finishing my study, I always wanna go back to my village, to my home, and continue what I would like to do, to teach to the people who need. So yeah, for the culture, uh, if I how can I describe it? Because yes. If we talk about the weather, so in Myanmar we only had 3 seasons, and here we have 4 seasons, but we don't have rainy season here. But it can rain in any time, any season. So that is the first thing I noticed because before I know this is only 4 seasons here in Europe. So I think since there is no rainy season, I wonder that it will not rain. I know like that. So but in real, no, it can be rain any time, any moment, and so that's quite different with the Myanmar, and with also for the culture. Uh, it depends. It's also different with the language also. like we don't use same body language, like how can I say, in Myanmar we smile a lot. Even the people we know or we don't know, when we meet each other on the street, we can just smile easily to anybody, just to show we like the simple greet. But here they don't smile like that. If we uh, before I did that a lot. I smile easily. But the reaction I get a bit strange. And finally, like that, I adapt, trying to adapt little by little, and then also for me, what I find one thing, if I talk about the food, and it's a totally different, of course. Like in Myanmar, we eat the fish base, we call it bee, and here France, they don't eat that, and but they had like saying cheese. For them, they had the many kind of cheese, which I can stand, even I can smell. But now, finally, I can try to eat I can try to eat like some kind of cheese. Yes, thing like that.
That's great. That's great to hear. I'm glad that you have finally come around to enjoying the delicacies of French cheese. And yes, I was in France when I was in college. And I think in America, we also smile a lot just for no reason, especially at strangers. And I certainly remember my time in Paris of smiling at every restaurant and supermarket and just on the street, and going through a similar experience of realizing that, okay, I think these people maybe think I'm something of a crazy lunatic, just smiling to everyone I know. So glad to hear that you've been more accustomed to French culture and people and everything else. So getting now to the recent years, it's great to have that background of your biography and what brought you to France and your experiences in France. Getting now to the NUG representation there. Let's return to the question I asked you to open this interview, and then we ended up going back in another direction to lead into this, which was great. But let's go back to that initial question, which goes into the heart of NUG recognition. As we know, the Western world, or the world in general outside of Myanmar, ASEAN, anywhere, has not really recognized the NUG formally as the rightful government of Myanmar. And this is something that the NUG has been working very much towards, to wanting to be seen as the legitimate rulers of it. Yet at the same time, even though the NUG doesn't control its embassies, isn't seen officially and diplomatically as the rightful leaders of Myanmar, that hasn't happened yet. We do have these NUG representatives in different places, like across Europe and Australia and US and other places. So I think that might be confusing for some people, that on one hand, the NUG is not recognized as the proper and rightful and legitimate rulers of Myanmar, and yet on the other hand, some countries have allowed the opening of official NUG offices. So can you explain about that recognition? Although the NUG itself is not recognized in France, I assume that you are recognized to some degree, in some way, as an NUG representative, and I don't really understand how that works. So can you explain that for us?
Yes, it is for us as well. We have been asking this question, because in France, as long as I know, they have their constitution that they practice like traditional law that's only recognize the state, not the government. So now this is good. This is good thing to Myanmar. So like they only recognize the state. They can only recognize the state, and they don't recognize the government. So they keep from the French side, keep saying that. So, but on the other hand, the France, like I said earlier, they are democratic country. So who is value the democratic? So they don't accept. They condemn strongly the act of the military. So they don't accept also. They don't accept the military, and they wanna show their support to the democratic government, civilian elected government, like now NUG. So they try to support at how can I say, with other direction. the for us in France, like we can open the office, and then we have communication. We can speak, we can share information, we can explain them anytime what is happening. So we have the regular communication. So also in France, the parliamentary, they already have two. They already submitted. There was already two resolution with in the Senate and in the National Assembly. So the second resolution, I can maybe I second or first. Anyway, that there is one of them include to recognize the NUG as a legitimate government. So for that resolution, also after they voted, they said that the France can only recognize the state, not the government. But they will support at all costs to the democratic government and the people of Myanmar.
Okay, excellent. That's good to know. In your capacity as being having the official role of being the NUG representative of France, you've talked about this a bit before, but if you can address it directly, what do you do? What is in your position? What is your responsibilities? What activities and actions do you do? You've mentioned being quite busy, quite overwhelmed. I can definitely imagine that. Can you take us a bit behind the scenes and tell us, as the official NUG representative in France, what are the current things that you're handling, the crises that you're facing, the responsibilities and tasks in front of you? Can you explain a bit about that?
Yes, because yes, it is a big challenge because if I mentioned, I don't have any experience in politics before, so this is all new to me. Because even I get the difficulty with the term or politics. So everything is new to me, and then suddenly I need to take the jobs, uh, and then I had to trying to found an office. So it was very difficult. But as a representative, I explained earlier, that the role as a representative, including like to communicate with the community. So that's a part of my job, trying to communicate regularly, having a regular meeting, and we're trying to organize, for example, what community are doing. Also, me in our office, so we are doing also to get financial aid. So since we NUG did, we had to rely on to the people donation. So until now we don't get any support from international community financially. So the NUG is like they selling EOD bond, NUG bond, and then EOD share, like the end of the dictatorship program. So things like that. As our office in France, we can take as an agent, because this is quite a duty to in the Euro country to say all those things. So before this program is have already before, when I have been appointed as a representative, but before that, nobody and no one can take that responsibility as an agent to say all those things in UG Bomb and EOD share. But after when we found our office, the first thing I did was to take that as an agent, because that's a part of the NUG representative office doing. So we did that, but for that we need somebody to take the responsibility for example, with the bank account, everything, because we don't have like one official account for like an organization account. So we don't have things like that. So we only can use our personal account and everything like that. So that's the one thing. And then another thing also of course we for example to try all those time trying to recruit. We need a big team or a team. I mean, not a team. We need a team with few people like can be trusted and like who can be committed in revolution. So first, I trying to collect people around us, but finally, the longer revolution take, the people are like they can't get much time, so it's difficult to find somebody who can give their time because most people in France they have their own job, they have so things like that. So that's also one thing. So that's also difficult, and concern with other we need to communicate with the other organization and other NGO, for example, concerned with the humanitarian assistance, things like that. But of course, there are so many things, but I can't explain it all here.
Yeah, I'm sure it's quite a big portfolio that you have to manage. I want to come back to one thing that you mentioned. You talk about the role that you play with fundraising and how you're not getting any support from any institution, certainly not any international organization. And so that falls on you. And this has been a refrain that we've talked about in past interviews with previous guests, looking into this spirit of sacrifice that has really has come to characterize not just the NUG, but the democracy movement for decades before it. And there's the spirit of sacrifice, of course, by the people in Myanmar who are literally putting their lives on the line for democracy and human rights. But the NUG is basically a vast volunteer bureaucracy, unlike anything that, according to experts we've spoken to, has ever really existed in the history of what we know of governments in the world. The people working in NUG, even the highest ministerial positions, are mostly volunteers with not getting livelihood, with no plan in the future of how to get a livelihood to make this all sustainable in that way. In addition to that, much of the fundraising that comes to support the NUG and the CDM and the NUCC and the CRPH, the PDFs as well, all these acronyms, it's really being carried on the burden of the backs of the diaspora abroad, the diaspora Burmese and ethnic communities. By and large, these Burmese diaspora communities in France and other countries are not really living too much above middle class. These are usually the immigrant communities that have settled elsewhere are really just trying to get by themselves. And yet through fundraising, through bonds, through many other creative ways, through auctions and other types of fundraisers, they're basically raising money within their own communities to then support Myanmar. And so all of this is pointing to this democracy movement really being carried, the burden, which has become something of a backbreaking burden, really being carried by Burmese everywhere, by Burmese volunteers in the NUG, by the diaspora who's funding it, and by those in the country who are risking their lives. And this begs the question, why has there not been more international support? Why have there not been more allies, more international allies that have come through to try to help in meaningful ways, whether it's advocacy or fundraising or media or whatever else? Of course, there are many exceptions. I would like to think that Insight Myanmar podcast is one such exception that is trying to help carry some of this burden, even in a very, very small way. But from your position in France, and you talk about working with the diaspora Burmese communities in France to fundraise and then send that money back to a number of the democratic initiatives and groups in Myanmar. I can only imagine after 2 years how much of a strain and pressure this is to keep asking those same Burmese communities to give more and more and more. It's just this endless request for trying to give and support. This goes hand in hand with why we don't see more advocacy, why we don't see more media, why we don't see more people kind of carrying this forward as a world issue, that the democratic parts of the world need to care about and need to support. So, in your estimation, why has it been so hard to break through? Why has it been so hard to try to bring other allies and supporters into carrying this backbreaking burden rather than having to keep going back and back again to these diaspora communities and asking them to just this bottomless giving, to keep giving and supporting and trying to find a way to uplift it? What can be done to go beyond these diaspora communities and start to get allies and supporters and friends and advocates who are not from these diaspora communities so that more people can be involved and engage and support?
Yes. Here in France, what we are doing, we have regularly the fundraising event. At those events, we trying to target France people also. So that's what we can do from. But for government level, and they now for France, they taking targeted sanction and against the individual entitled with their European level. So that's also what they can do for the moment. Because these sanctions also include the travel ban, access freeze, and also prohibition to make fun available and embargo and so on. But that's why we are when we engage with we are engaging with France authority. We always ask help for the humanitarian assistance. So from the NUG side, we are trying to get international support. For example, now already in the US, there is a national defense NDA, sorry. So, which include the Burma Act. So we don't know exactly how much the money, but that's also a big, how can I say, a big step for our people, because until now, since we didn't get any support financially from international community, at least this is a big step, and I hope in 2023 there will be more from. We hope to get more to get financial support from international community, international government, and then NUG also trying for that. Because that, in my personal opinion, because that like Western country with the war happening in Ukraine, they are just seeing what's happening there. Because there is this invasion, and they don't think Myanmar, what's happening in Myanmar is not like a big threat to them. But in Ukraine, is this in Europe? So that is the difference, if I may say, the difference between the Myanmar, what's happening in Myanmar, and what's happening in Ukraine. But that's why we every time we speak or communicate with the people, we always say that what's happening in Myanmar is not only about Myanmar people concern, it's also about global issue. So like the Indonesia, because of the Russia invaded to Ukraine, we all know that. But in what happening in Myanmar also, the Russia President Putin, he is a big supporter, one of the biggest supporter to Myanmar, the name which I discussed to say it out loud. But they are joining hand in hand like Amanda. So yes, that's why I would like to say that the international community should consider that, because the what is happening in Myanmar is also a threat to the regional country and also to the world.
Right. Thanks for that. Now, looking at France specifically, are there interests or issues related to Myanmar or connecting Myanmar to France that you find are particularly relevant to a French audience or to your work in France?
I could say that because that's it all. I don't speak as a representative. So, if I speak in my personal opinion, France is they are now we has noted that they are so into Indo-Pacific, so they are interested in the region. So Indo, we can say Myanmar also include in the Indo-Pacific. So I hope in their Indo-Pacific strategy, they will try to engage or expand their ally with the country. But now with the crisis, the situation in Myanmar, uh, so it will be difficult. It will be difficult. It's not good for anyone because the Myanmar is rich in natural resource with the gem, everything rare art, which is the China overexplored during the coup after the coup. So all those things, and then into Indian Ocean, with all those the territory. So Myanmar is in the center as well. So I think that's France. Uh, we can compare with the Ukraine, of course, but I think the France, if the Myanmar in peace, there will be more benefit from every country around us.
Right. You reference as well that part of your job as being NUG representative in France is to support those Burmese citizens and communities that are living in France now. Can you share a bit about what about those Burmese communities? What types of Burmese have come to settle in France? What do they do? What numbers are they? And what what are the kinds of issues that they face that you're having to help with now?
Uh, yes, so as I say, because of maybe I forget to say that before, after the coup d'etat, I also joined the people to protest in protest against the coup. So I joined the other Burmese in France, and so then I joined the Burmese community in France, CBF we call. So this is an NGO which was founded over 10 years ago, and then now reformed with a new office member. So at that time, after the coup in 2021, I was at the secretary there, and so we organize the manifestation regularly, and also myself collect a donation as much as I can for the needy people on the ground who are fighting against the brutal agenda. So after even after become a representative, I keep communicate with them because yes, as you already know, we the Burmese people here is just we are just working, had their job, and so. In France, I can say it is around 500 Burmese in total, but in Paris, maybe like hundreds. But you know, the first day when we organized very first manifestation, maybe it's like over 200. I as long as I remember, but maybe more because this is just my gap. So this is the first ever manifestation that I see many Burmese. Before even I live in France for 2 years, but I don't know. I didn't know much many Burmese people. Even the Burmese community in France, the organization I said earlier, even that I didn't know that they exist. What I want to say is, after revolution became 1 year, 2 year, and now the Burmese people, they are also struggling with their life, with their for the student, maybe with their study, so on. So the people who can participate in revolution become fewer and fewer. So now in this day or in this time after 1 year after the coup, when we organized when the community, when they organized the manifestation, that I did notice that the people who participated became just very, very few, not like before. So that is one thing. And but until now we send our stay because there are many difficulty for them as well. I can understand that. We all, even we stay in France, we still have some difficulty if because of the agenda is arrest everybody who involved in NUG or involved somehow in revolution. Even if we share one Facebook book publicly, they will arrest you. They can arrest. So with every reason. So that's why people, of course, we are human beings. We are afraid. So most people, I think most people, they trying to lay low. Of course, we still have our family there, and so we, of course, even if we wanna do as much as we can, send, we had their own reason. So that's why the saying in our office. That's why not many people can participate in my office to help us.
Right. And you had referenced early on in this interview that when you decided to take this position of being NUG representative, you were aware of the risks. You were aware that you would have a public face and name and officiality, and that was a concern for you. So, what factors went into making that decision of deciding to step forward and take that risk to do what you could for your country's democratic movement? And what personal risks do you feel you've faced by having to be out in the open in your activism and advocacy?
So yes, because as I said earlier, so before there was a representative in France before me, but after the NUG due to some circumstance, they need to appoint a new one. So I know that all the process at that time. I am in CBF, the Burmese community, as a secretary. So we are discussing about that with the NUG, especially with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or NUG. So I know that they have been trying to find a candidate for long, like maybe I can say 1 year or 6 months. So like this is a big role. So but for me, I don't have any background, but I just like maybe I can say I'm foolish, but of course for our country, it is for our country, and then France is a big country, so for our government, we support NUG, so our government needs somebody. So I just decided that finally somebody had to do it. So just like that, because I just decided with strong determination that somebody had to do it, or because this is whether I don't have any experience in politics. I just decided if I just can take the role and let my name and my face publicly, that's already one thing. Is even I don't do nothing yet. It is already one thing, and then I just decided that because it's better than nothing. But of course, when I take the job, it comes with the responsibility. So of course, I face so many difficulty, and for the other, like my family, everything, I still can't talk in detail. So this is if I still have difficulty with that. So I can't talk much. Stay, yeah.
Right. And another question is that you reference coming from an ethnic minority community, a Karen and Pa'o. And there's been a lot of discussion of the Burmanization policies that have taken place in the country politically, in terms of the education system, in terms of the opportunities that are available. And that has been something that has continued to be examined and questioned during this democratic period, and especially with the work of the NUG and looking at to what degree some kind of solidarity is being built between the majority Bamar and the number of ethnic minorities, how much their voice is being listened to and incorporated, and how much they're trying to break from and diverge from different movements of the past, which have been mostly Bamar led, into something that has been taking into consideration more and more these ethnic minority voices. And as someone who is both coming from a background of being an ethnic minority as well as being an official member of the NUG, what are your thoughts about how Burmanization manifested growing up for you in Myanmar, and what you see of that happening today with the NUG? Do you see the NUG really trying to break new ground in welcoming and incorporating ethnic voices in ways they haven't done before, or do you have concerns that they could be doing more?
Yes, how can I say, we see it now, so it is quite obvious compared with the past, because when I grew up, most are the under the Burma centralization. So I have some experience that as I myself miss ethnic, so uh, we face some difficulty concerned with that. We are, for me, as a how can I say, as I belong to two ethnics, so that's it more event among the at the level or the Korean Ubo. When I was young, some friend, for example, if I go with some Korean friends, they can say I am Miss. How can I say, we use one special words in Myanmar. So like that's experience, that's feeling I always get even among our ethnic people. But if I go with Po, we say, Po friend, we say that you are also belong to Korean or those things like that. So when we arrive to the university, then most are Burma. So the thing like that we have also like before. That's one of the issue and the dictatorship, because they are like they are very like trained or used to or like manipulated. Nationalists. So, like if they check when we go, for example, if we travel, we had to cross the gate, one city to another city, like from Pa'an to Rangoon. We had to cross different gate, and then if they check our passport, if I am Buddhist, or if I Christian, or if I other Muslim, like that. Only if I Buddhist and Burmese, it will take very, very fast. But since I am Korean, so they will ask a lot of questions. So I can imagine if I were Christian or other minority, so it will be more difficult for them. I can relate that. But now we see after the good, this time totally difference, because we are live and now we are in 21st century. Even though the education system in Myanmar is stay compared with other country or international level stay low, but we have under the in 2015 to 2020 under the civilian government. So we have the internet, we have all those things, we can check everything. So their mind become they can know things, and they can decide on their own. So like the Generation Z right now, they don't care when they make the friend, they don't care where their friend come from, what their nationality, what their religion, they don't care that. We all are human. So they know that. And then, so after the coup, since those young generation, they can't, they couldn't accept that, because the coup is, the revolution is happening after the coup, not like before in Myanmar, before the coup d'etat, that they all are happening after the revolution. But this time very different, and this revolution is led by the especially the Generation Z. So those young generation, they are they know They know what other country, they know the human rights, they know all the equality. So now NUG, that's why we call inclusive. So even in the NUG member, there is or not only Karen, it's also other Kachin, Chin, every ethnic minority. They try to put inside the how can I say man inside the NUG. So and also we have seen that they are engaging like with the unresistant organization now, not really like KNU, now KIA, KNDF, every and the Chin CDF, Chin Land Defense Forces. So all of the this is the first time the first time a government who can join hand in hand with all the resistant group. So ethnic and resistant group. So that's it. We have seen the very first time because we know that the NCA they amend the gender and EAO it doesn't work until now. So that's why the NUG the people since they are all inclusive, they are trying also. They are also trying more and more inclusive, and then now we are in the we are determined to go to the federal democracy. So that's why they giving a commitment to the people to listen to the voice of the people. That's why, yes.
Great, thank you for that. That's really great to hear your thoughts on that. I think that's a very good note to end on. And before we close, I just want to give you the floor. You have whoever is tuning in and listening to your voice thus far. If there's any closing or concluding remarks or messages you would like to leave for our listeners.
Yes, I would like to remind back the situation with what is happening in Ukraine, because I just would like to remind the international community that what is happening in our country, in Myanmar, is also international issue because of what is happening in Ukraine. Because Russia invaded Ukraine and more of the international community, they provide support and give the necessary help to help Ukrainian people to defend their country from the Russian army. So we in Burmese people, I would like to say in Myanmar also, we must not forget that Russia is involved somehow in supporting the gender terrorists. So by providing all kinds of military weapons like fighter jets, helicopter, and fuel ship and more, so that the junta is using to kill and terrorize the people of Myanmar. So we have seen that. So therefore, we must not forget that the involvement of Russia and also China in the crisis of our country, in our country. So our revolution is a global cause. So this crisis is also a threat to all neighboring countries and to the international community. So we can see that tyrants and dictators are supporting each other. So I believe that this time is crucial, and that we must eradicate and stop all kind of dictatorship in this world to us to fully live under true democracy with freedom and justice, also and equality. And also, I would like to send a few messages to our Burmese people, and especially to Burmese diaspora. So as the revolution became longer and longer, we all can sometimes become depressed or like as I said earlier, we want to escape from the reality and to forget what is happening in our country. But we might not forget, and we have to remember that our People Defense Force, PDF, who is belonging to all class or ages, including TAs, young people, boys and girls. So they are taking arms and fighting for the country. So, and now we have to encourage them by continually to support the revolution in every way we can. I also know we live in foreign country, and there are difficulty as well to involve in revolution, especially publicly. But we can support in many different ways that the people inside Myanmar couldn't do. For example, like we can share information among each other, and we can join the campaign, or also like click to donate by watching the Revolution channel on YouTube. So, and to those who can support financially, can also buy a NUG bond or UD share, because all the collected funds go directly to the ground. So as long as we don't lose hope on our revolution, we are already winning, and we shall keep believing in it because our revolution shall prevail. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode. Being a small, mostly volunteer team, our production time for a single episode before the coup was sometimes as long as 4 months from start to finish. While we worked at decreasing the lead time, the fastest we were ever able to manage was just around 3 weeks. Yet during this current crisis, where even a single day's events can produce such shocking news and urgent needs, we simply don't have the luxury of time. So we have worked around the clock to substantially shorten the length of our production cycle. The turnaround for some episodes is now just 36 hours. However, we cannot accomplish this goal without your support. If you have found value in today's episode and think others might also benefit from this type of content, please consider making a donation so that we can continue our mission. If you would like to join in our mission to support those in Myanmar who are being impacted by the military coup, we welcome your contribution in any form, currency, or transfer method. Your donation will go on to support a wide range of humanitarian and media missions, aiding those local communities who need it most. Donations are directed to such causes as the Civil Disobedience Movement, CDM, families of deceased victims, internally displaced person IDP camps, food for impoverished communities, military defection campaigns, undercover journalists, refugee camps, monasteries and nunneries, education initiatives, the purchasing of protective equipment and medical supplies, COVID relief, and more. We also make sure that our donation fund supports a diverse range of religious and ethnic groups across the country. We invite you to visit our website to learn more about past projects as well as upcoming needs. You can give a general donation or earmark your contribution to a specific activity or project you would like to support, perhaps even something you heard about in this very episode. All of this humanitarian work is carried out by our nonprofit mission, Better Burma. Any donation you give on our Insight Myanmar website is directed towards this fund. Alternatively, you can also visit the Better Burma website, betterburma.org, and donate directly there. In either case, your donation goes to the same cause, and both websites accept credit card. You can also give via PayPal by going to paypal.me/betterburma. Additionally, we can take donations through Patreon, Venmo, GoFundMe, and Cash App. Simply search Better Burma on each platform and you'll find our account. You can also visit either website for specific links to these respective accounts or email us at info@betterburma.org. That's Better Burma, one word, spelled BETTERBURMA.org. If you would like to give in another way, please contact us. We also invite you to check out our range of handicrafts that are sourced from vulnerable artisan communities across Myanmar, available at alokacrafts.com. Any purchase will not only support these artisan communities, but also our nonprofit's wider mission. That's Aloka Crafts, spelled ALOKACRAFTS, one word, alokacrafts.com. Thank you so much for your kind consideration and support.
Ruba Yarananda Dayananga Yaranaya Dayanam Boda Yaranam